Armada Book 1 Chapter 2, Planet Los Angeles. Third week in December 2057. It's been a long day. That feels good. I'll ask Danny for a massage tonight, Julia Bird thought as she massaged her shoulders. I hope this meeting will be a quick one, almost lost in her thoughts. She was walking towards the office of the president quickly since she knew she was late. The hall looked the same, but now it's an unappealing blur. She focused her attention on the face of Daisy, who looks up and sees her, not direct at her eyes but looking somewhere else. Madam Secretary, the president will see you now. Daisy stood up and opened the door to the Oval Office for her. Daisy did not even look at her. But when she did, when Julia got closer, it amazes Daisy that Julie looks so young and fit, stylish brown hair, maybe from her California roots. Always well dressed but can be a real bitch. Like a dream, she's back. She instinctively walks into the office like she has done countless times. Thank you, Daisy. Julie, how are you? President Albert Baker greeted her as he moves around his desk to greet her. Daisy slowly closed the door from outside. I'm feeling my age, Allie. So what's up? Julie hugged the president. She feels light and easy as she has always have by instinct when it's Albert. Look, I believe I'm older by 26 days. You know, when you walked in, I suddenly had this flash scene when you walked into our chemistry class in high school. You were a brunette then and everybody in the class was thinking, here comes the genius of the class. Albert said. He forgot to mention how impeccably dressed she has always been. You were the class clown. Those were happy days with you and Danny and Joey and your girlfriend Nina. You always had the most fun stories. Although I know half of them were made up. No, they were not. Maybe a 2/3 but not half, Albert thought. Albert was recently re-elected as the 55th U.S. president. At 58 and divorced 10 years ago, he is literally married to his job. His only non-working hour is the 4 to 5 hours of sleep he gets at the oddest hours of the day or night. Her name was Minda, or was it? He went over the intercom and, Daisy, let Harold in please. Albert turned to Julia and, how's Danny? He's been rather melancholic lately. It seems getting off and retiring from his business duties made him feel unwanted and now psychosomatic. Well, just kick his ass and he'll get around. He has always exhibited the laziness of boys trying to skip their duties since we were young. But a little slap may do it. Just then Daisy and Harold Hick walked in. Harold Hick was Albert's best friend in Harvard Law School. Albert pulled him from being a judge after serving in the war for 5 years to be his defense secretary. Like him, he divorced his wife, who incidentally or maybe not incidentally was his wife's best friend. Now it's just the two of them married to each other in the White House. Let's play a game, let's all stand inside the seal and close our eyes. Julia laughingly followed, as did Daisy and Harold. But I'm not closing my eyes. Okay, Daisy, beam us up, Albert said. With that, Julia saw the room blurred and like a channel changing on the TV she found herself inside a large hall and she could see a lake with mountains at the background at the left side of the president. She started to walk. What just happened? Julia asked Albert. Welcome to Planet Los Angeles, Julie, Albert answered. Is this one of your jokes again? Julia asked as she started to move towards the balcony. No, Julie, we really are on a different planet some 60 MLY away from Earth. Julie heard people laughing and talking as she slowly approached the balcony balusters. She realized that she's in a large Italian type of mansion overlooking a large backyard that stretched to the bank of the lake. She walked over by the window and saw people mingling around and realized they were somewhat smaller. Smaller than Asians, but their body structures are larger with slightly larger heads. Some military personnel were sitting by a fountain laughing with some of the small people. Welcome to Planet Los Angeles, Julie. It was a familiar voice. She turned around and saw General Tim Rivers, one of her husband's very best friends. She walked over and hugged her old friend tight as always and, you look younger from the last time I saw you. Hello, Julie, her friend Elaine greeted on her left and hugged her as well. Elaine kissed her cheeks. I like your light brown hairstyle. It makes you look so European. Elaine commented. Let's all sit down and make Julie comfortable so she can understand what's happening here, Albert suggested. He gestured to his right. They all sat down on classic sofas. Elaine sat beside Julia and held Julia's left hand and, start explaining, Allie, she looked at the president. The president started his story at a time before he was re-elected and he told her about their first contact with the Macs and the Macs proposal. He told her what Macs were and that they were really humans brought out of the Earth and lived somewhere else. He told her that for the past 2 years since they met the Macs, several thousand people, mostly scientists and military, have been involved in the secret off-world activities. One of the names on the list of personnel the Macs needed was her husband. And the Macs also detailed her role in the scheme of things. And you decided to tell me only now? You were always out of the country, too busy I guess. While the president was explaining, Daisy came in with a tray of orange juice and some cookies that she put on the table. Harold Hicks stood up and walked with Daisy out of the room. You know, I had a long day, like 28 hours, and I was looking to a short meeting to go to my Danny and have him massage my shoulders. Now it's early in the morning on a different planet and you sound like this is all in a day's work. How do I know this isn't one of your elaborate pranks? Maybe I'm fast asleep somewhere and you're in my dream. Look, Julie, I am not pulling a prank on you. What I am telling you now is real. This is real stuff. And you should get used to this as all in a day's work. Don't you feel a bit better now with your tiredness gone? Here, have some orange juice and cookies. Tim said. Yes, you're right, I don't feel that tired anymore, just a little bit I guess. That's the effect of the transport platforms, or TPs as we call them. So the rug in the Oval Office is your magic carpet? Well, no, they implanted the platform on the floor. Albert said. So what exactly is my role in the scheme of things? Julia asked. One of the best qualities of these Macs is that they are natural sleuths. They do this chore like breathing air and it's a fun job for them. Around 20 years ago, several hundred thousands of these Macs beamed into Earth from ships behind Saturn and started studying people. After 10 years they were able to create a predictive model where relationships were taken into account as one of the end objectives. They came out with a list that involves millions of groups and relationships. They have a list of all the exploration teams they want to deploy, they have a list of scientists that would work on various technologies they want to transfer, they have a list for people they want to relate with. The list is not the reason I appointed you as Secretary of State, although your name was in there as one of my team members. It's like your regular dating site, only here they're matching people with destinies with the hope that the choice will bring a better outcome for the task at hand. Albert discussed. It was a long prep to let Julia know a background of things. And my job is? Julia repeated. As Secretary of State you have the world on your shoulders. How do we bring the world, other countries, into our new reality? How do we approach the issues? What would be our overriding attitude? These are hard questions you must answer. We have just over 3 years to work on the solution. Albert said. Is that all? You know my mind and body tell me I'm hungry and your explanations made me famished, Julia said. Albert smiled, thinking he already knows what Julia would say. Don't let the hungry get angry. Tim quipped. I cooked your favorite. Elaine said as she held Julia's hand and led her into the next room. She looked at the long dining table and was amazed at the quantity of the food. The table seats 12 people and the food appeared to be for 12 as well. Aren't you all watching your weight? Julia looked at Elaine. Here we eat what we like. Look at this young suckling pig, one of your pig-out favorites literally speaking, and look at this, your marinated tilapia, your favorite white pasta and your favorite wine. Harold and Daisy walked in and waited for the president. Have a seat, we don't want to get the famished angry. Albert said, quickly sitting himself. Elaine sat on the left of Julia with Albert on her right. Tim sat at the head of the table while Daisy and Harold sat across them. Julia noticed the president seemed to be doing a no-holds-barred eating frenzy. As did all the others. 2 Macs entered the dining room and put a large cake on the far side of the table and a basket of cut fruits. Your favorite cheesecake, Elaine said. I'm famished and I'm eating 1/10 of what you guys are eating. Here, have some of your favorite wine. Albert poured her a drink. Around here nobody watches their weight. Tim said. Daisy, I cannot imagine you're so slim and you're devouring this pig as if you have not had food for ages. Julie told Daisy, who just smiled at her and continued to eat. Julia, it's one of the side effects of the magic carpet. Timmy said. Let's talk about your first reaction to your role in the secret scheme. Albert said, looking at Julia. Offhand, I'd say fuck international relations, fuck the UN and fuck foreign policy. Laughing, Albert said, I believe I see where you're going. You're really a smart cookie. I'm also a bitch, you know that, don't you? Gosh, you have not changed a bit. Albert thought. He just gave her a familiar smile. You know me, Allie, I'll get the job done, and our new policy will be on your desk in 2 days. Fuck this pig is so good. Tim laughed at Julia's brash excitement. Harold and Daisy laughed as well. Wow, this tilapia is just like what your mom used to cook. Julia said to Elaine. Elaine passed some of the lemon in front of her to Julia. Yes, because my mom cooked it for you. Is she here? No, she left this morning for a tour of Planet Seattle with her brother Uncle Ray. Allie, what's my husband have to do with the secret scheme? Planet development. Tim continued Albert's comment, and multi-planet development. An endless task. Goodness, now he'll have his ass out of the couch at the same time feel more important. It's also good for his health and longevity. Let's have your favorite cheesecake, Julie. Tim said as he moved to the cake and started cutting it. He placed one big slice on a regular plate and gave it to Julia. "Here, enjoy," Tim said. The cheesecake slice was huge and Julia was excited to eat her favorite, but this time it is simply huge, maybe 3 times the usual slice. This cake tastes just like the one we buy down the block," Julia commented. "Because it is. You have good taste," Elaine said. The group proceeded to get their slices. "So the TPs makes you feel better?" Julia asked. "What actually happens is that when you get transported, your body is cloaked or made out of phase with regular spacetime, then your out-of-phase body is encapsulated in a time bubble, and this time bubble preserves normal time to you inside the bubble. The bubble in turn is also covered by another time bubble and then a third one which travels in a warp time stream, like a river moving within a river within a river. The third time bubble sort of shields the traveler going through warped space, which at the speed you're traveling would have major bumps on the road. The concept makes for faster and safer transport. Along the way, some or a small portion of physical defects or abnormal tissue like cancer cells are not reintegrated completely when you come out of the out-of-phase cloak. Over a longer period of time, as you use the TP more, less and less defects are to be found and you basically become younger. In the end, humans will eventually live longer, up to 800 years. For us oldies, we'll be lucky if we live another 400 years. For the next generation, I'm sure they'll reach the maximum," Tim said. Of course, the Macs have advances in medicine that enables the body to regenerate all its tissue much more, than usual. They have these gadgets that look like fat pens that help your body heal itself. Sometimes they use some pens that dispense extremely small nanobots to do the job. Albert added. "Wow, I finished the whole slice. Okay, so now I should be younger the more I use the TPs, so that's why you all eat like pumped-up teenagers. But 800 years is too long for anybody to live," Julia said, and surprised Albert, who thought she was not listening. "Imagine being married for that long." He looked at Harold, who gave the thumbs up. Their marriages did not last 10 years, Harold's held for 9 while he was more decisive at 8 years. Some marriages would not last 10 years, it would be impossible for a marriage to last 400 years. "Hell, I'll tell Danny to divorce me when we're 200 so I can have another husband every 100 years. I think Elaine just wanted or maybe intended only 50 more years from me," Tim said, and everybody laughed. Imagine the education and productivity a consistently long life will give the human race. Add the accumulation of capital wealth by the person or even by the state and you would end up with a very large and rich society. Elaine said. "We end up with a very large society where people take a long time to die. That is why the Macs are all over the place. They colonize or move on to establish themselves in a lot of planets. Right now they do not even know how many planets they are living in or where all their planets are," Albert said. "When you know that you will live longer, your priorities change. In fact, your outlook towards the world changes. You become more laid back and calm. Pretty much what the Macs do. They work for 100 years then retire or do whatever in the next 700 years or so. There's also the human population expansion, but with several planets this will not be a problem. I believe that no matter how long humans live and how advanced human technology is, we will still be doing what we're doing right now. We will still get bored, but more often, we will still be happy many more times. We will still be fractious and may even end up medieval, only on a larger and longer scale," Julia said. "Take the Macs, the key ingredient in their cohesive society is the availability of almost perfect information about everyone else through some kind of collective thought, like a common data server. There is a plant-like life form that grows underground and feeds on their collective thought. It grows because of their collective thought. It is also in the Mac's nature to always plant some of these wherever they are. If a Mac does something bad, it is immediately known by the collective or pool of thought. As separate individuals they have complete freedom whether to share or withhold from the collective. Disagreements are settled quickly because you are forced to open up and be judged by the collective. The surprising thing is that this almost perfect information made them unbelievably forgiving and respectful. None of them have been sentenced to physical harm. Their most severe punishment is to be left out of the collective for so many years. Their most endearing quality to humans and Macs alike is their devotion to service to their fellow Mac or human. They are also a bunch of clowns and they love to get drunk," Albert said. "A defect is that they would never harm another Mac or human. They could not imagine how to hurt another. They do not have guns. If you tell them to use their knives to kill, they will not know how, or that their minds will simply close to the idea," Tim said. "That's where we come in," Julia commented. "Correct," Tim said. "And what will protect them from us?" "Their answer is other humans as well," Albert said. "That is why they studied people first and ended with the lists, so their odds of success for their plan would be higher. In every group of 10 or 12 there is always one Judas. If you eliminate the Judas, the group becomes more cohesive and productive. They have eliminated these Judases from ever becoming part of the early explorers and the chosen few in the list. The list is part of the agreement. So if you are a part of the list in a group, for example, as in the case of our fighting men and women, you are bound to be in that group. You cannot transfer out because it was part of the contract. Tim said. Based on their studies, the US will be the best partner they can have to achieve their goals. They took their time to study their options and in the end they settled to talk to me. Albert said. What is their goal in this entire secret scheme? Very good question. The Macs are a caring and, as you now know, an absolutely peaceful group. And the answer is preservation of humanity. Always remember that Macs are physically humans also. Their bodies are not different from us. Their genetic sequencing is not much different from us. In fact, humans can inbreed with Macs and the offsprings will be okay. Just smaller but in rare cases taller. In all these, their offspring may or may not carry the implant which has become part of their genetic code. Julie, when they approached us more than 2 years ago, they pointed to something that will happen in the year 3421. The Earth will cease to be habitable. Humanity will start to die off in around 1,300 years. And if you're a Mac who lives 800 on average, the 1,400 years is just less than 2 lifetimes. They see us as equals, although a tad on the crazy side. They see us as Macs also, and they could not bear to see us die. Tim said. And you believe them? Julia asked. Individually, Macs can lie, and they often do, but their collective thought cannot lie. They have a device that enables humans or outsiders to witness their collective thought as if they were Macs connecting to the collective. They showed me and now I believe them. Albert said. Tim continued, of course, our capability to defend them and go on the offensive against their enemies does not hurt either. Daisy will give you a tablet with all the information you need to understand these people. I hope it will help you draft your policies. Albert said, looking at Daisy. Allie, I believe you already know what my policies will look like. The implementation is both tricky and will require a lot of work. I would need help in these areas. I have several 100,000 Macs helping me get information from around the world by whatever means, in any shape or form. They will be at your service. They have a list of individuals for you to choose from. Or you can choose them all. They can even alter their facial features using some form of surgery so they can pass as an Earthling. I have one working under the FBI director and the CIA director. Just then a Mac entered with a tray of coffee and tea. Julie, this is Londi. She's 400 years old, married once, a mother of 10, and has studied the equivalent of all the major science and arts courses offered in universities, all in doctorate level. She has worked at the plant that makes cloaking bands for 100 years. Now she takes care of this house as main caretaker. She had her face slowly altered for the past 6 years so she can pass on as an Earthling. The adventure is what drives her. Tim said. Hi Londi, you look like my secretary's daughter. How's your English? I can speak it in 25 different accents, although I very much prefer the Australian accent. Londi said. She can work as your executive assistant. She speaks almost all the languages on Earth in any accent you like. And she's your immediate access to their collective thought, including all the cloaked Macs on Earth at various times. Albert said. Is that a presidential directive? No, but think about it, she could be very useful. And she knows all your favorite foods and how to get them for you. Elaine said. Okay, you're hired. Sit beside me. Elaine knows her too much, Julia thought. I am honored to be in your service. You are one of the chosen ones and I am eager to bring all that I can in your service. Why Londi, that's very kind of you. I wish you could have brought Danny with you. I have this liquor the Macs drink and it's a real high. How about this Saturday morning, bring Danny over and stay for the weekend? Tim said. So I have to bring Danny to the Oval Office each time? I can put a portable TP anywhere in your house. Londi said. These portable ones only beam you up to 100 ly away. Normally you go to a starship first and their long-range TP will get you to where you want to go. Tim said. We have a starship? Julia asked. They gave it to us. One of 3. Albert said. And these starships have weapons? Julia asked. Not at first, but the Macs guided us to develop our own. Now we have plasma torpedoes, which are nuclear devices or regular ordnances coated in plasma. We still use missiles, but they are ion fusion powered. Some missiles are mixed in with plasma. You'll get used to these things as you go. Albert said. How large are these starships? Albert looked at Harold. The Endeavour is the size of 30 modern aircraft carriers. It can carry at most 50,000 personnel. That is so huge. Like a small city. Fighting city. Tim said. Allie, so there are cloaked Macs on Earth? Yes, at least 100,000 at a time doing all sorts of things. You know, like spying on our neighbors. Or hacking into their computers. Albert said. If I may, sir, Madam Secretary, one of their prime objectives is to hack into all the drug cartel bank accounts and transfer their money to the IRS and CIA accounts. Now they transfer the money mostly to CIA accounts. Another is to hack into terrorist bank accounts and transfer the money to the government accounts as well. And they do this using the same computers the cartel and terrorist accountants use. And it drives these bad guys crazy. Some suspected their accountants, but after killing their accountants, money is still getting transferred out. The terrorists will simply have no more money to buy guns or explosive or clothes on their backs or even food to eat. Pretty much the end for them. Harold said. And the Macs, they do this for us for free? Not really, because we give them all sorts of things in return. Actually, some are drafted, some are compensated by their government and some by some of the large cooperative groups or companies they maintain in their home planets. Their compensation is the sleuthing. Like I said, they get a kick out of spying. It's like their opium. For now. Later, as our societies integrate, an expansion of the human race. Albert answered. So Harold, how much have we stolen from the bad guys? So far, enough to build 2 starships. About $5.5 trillion. I expect to get 3 times this amount worldwide from all sorts of bad guys within the year. It's unbelievable these cartels can have so much money. Harold answered Tim. That's a lot of money. Is it? Julia asked. It is an insane amount of money. But we're not using the money for a starship. We would be creating the industries needed to start the fusion economy on Earth and pay development of planet infrastructures. The fusion economy will enable the US to dominate the world energy supply. The local scientists have finished adapting the technology to use most Earth-type energy storage. This fusion technology they gave us is so old to them, but that is what is suited for the Earth's level of technology. Now they use diamond as power storage. We cannot use diamond on Earth even if we have tons of diamond in storage. Albert said. These are all good inputs. Londi, what do you think? I believe in 3 years the US economy will constitute about half of the world's economy. Londi commented. How do you think can we support a large economy with just 400 million people? Article 4 of the Constitution. I believe we can swing it through both houses. Albert said. Article 4 will add an estimated 500 million people. Londi said. I guess that will work, but it will take years. A massive recruiting program should be started to be done by all our embassies. Julia said. That's a good idea, Madam Secretary. Let me work on it. Harold, what prevents the crime lords from accusing and suing the government for stealing? Elaine asked. Proof. It is a public fact that the government has always aspired to hurt the criminals where they hurt most. Only this time we are actually doing it and they cannot understand how. Albert said. What else do they sleuth on? Julia continued her questions. They bring home intelligence in its rawest form, actual experiences. Like which businessmen are conspiring with terrorists. Londi said. That's invasion of privacy. Julia commented. As you already concluded, the rules of the ballgame has changed. When we open up to the world, this sleuthing will be removed from public knowledge. None must know that we did it. They would know we did it from the Macs, but by then the agreement is binding. Albert said. Right now it really is an entirely different ballgame. We just have to be very careful how we do things. Tim said. Why don't you show her around while I get something done with Harold? Albert said. I'm sorry, Allie, right now I want to sleep. You realize it's around 12 midnight already and I need to get some sleep for tomorrow. I have to meet with the 4 rich guys and try to draw up a massive Marshall Plan for the Middle East. I understand, Daisy will give you something to make you sleep well. If you noticed your heartbeat has gone up and it would be very hard for you to sleep. The food you ate will add to your sleep problem. Julia embraced and said her goodbyes to Tim and Elaine. Daisy showed her where to stand. And just like that, both of them are back in the Oval Office. Daisy quickly ran to her desk and got a bottle of sleeping aid pills for Julia. These are very strong sleeping pills. I believe just one will knock you out in less than an hour. Thank you, Daisy. Can you call my driver to pull up in front? And with that she left for her car. Early morning in Julia's bedroom. That was an incredible dream, she thought. Her husband was already up and in the kitchen from the noise he's making. She stood up and knocked over the bottle. Shit, it's not a dream, she said to herself and groaned. She closed her eyes to sleep for a moment. Good morning, sweetie. I prepared something. Danny said. Julia felt that she just closed her eyes and Danny was there in a flash. She sat up. You know what, Allie gave me a late-night dinner and I still feel full. Julia answered. I'm going to this space exhibit today with Ari and I guess we'll be back late. If you like we can have dinner together maybe at 9? Danny said. Sure. What time did Ari come home last night? I did not see her in her room last night when I got home. I don't know my get up until 9. Maybe, I will call you. I don't know, but I'm just glad she's home for the holidays, Danny said. You spoil her too much. Tell her to get home on time. You never know what's out there. She told me that she's interested in shifting her major to aerospace engineering. I guess medicine does not appeal to her anymore. After spending 3.5 years in college? She's less than a year before she graduates. She looked at Danny with a disappointed look. Tell Ari, I have a surprise for her this weekend so make sure she does not make any plans. Suddenly, the doorbell rings. I'll get it, Ari shouted from the top of the stairs. Then, Mom, there's somebody here for you. Ari shouted again. Julia got a robe and walked towards the door. She saw Londi. Oh hi Londi, please come on in. She walks in carrying a small traveling bag. Honey, this is Londi, she's the daughter of my cousin who married a Filipino in San Francisco. Londi, this is Danny and my daughter Ari. I'm glad to meet you at last. I will be happy to be of service to you. Londi said in a distinct Asian accent. You speak English like one of my friends in college. But what's the service thingy? Ari asked. No, she means she's working for me at the State Department as my personal aide. So she's my cousin, right, Mom? Yes, she is. Julia must love your mother very much. She would never hire a personal aide and a relative at that. Come on in, please. Ari moved to the kitchen and the group followed. Londi, would you like some cereals? Ari offered. I've already eaten a big breakfast. Londi said. I'll just go upstairs and take a bath. He told Julia. I'll go upstairs with you. Ari, show Londi to the guest room where she'll be staying when you're done. In a few minutes Julia comes down, always dressing well for her meetings. Come on Londi, let's go. She told Londi as she was walking down the stairs. Londi did not miss a beat, got to the door and opened it. Londi stepped ahead of Julia. She looked at the driver who opened the limo door. Rocky, Paula, this is Londi, my new aide. Good morning Madam Secretary, good morning Ms. Londi. Both of them greeted. Paula, take Londi and buy her some rags and shoes at the mall. Get her a phone and a tablet. She kissed Danny and Ari who were also now going to their car. Hey Mom, I like her. Also her accent is so Asian. The next morning Londi has prepared a pancake breakfast for the family. Smells good Londi, just like my mom's pancakes from many years ago, said Ari. You have very good taste in clothes like your mother. Here, have some orange juice. Londi said. Thank you Londi. Good morning Mom, Dad. I told your mom about the exhibit yesterday and the new space technologies that are really out of this world. Yes Mommy, you should have gone with us. They showed the latest technologies and even had a real room of the space station. I got to talk with a real astronaut and he went to the space station 12 times in 4 years. Now I really want to take up aerospace engineering. Maybe I can be an astronaut or a mission engineer or something. That's great, you can be a very good aerospace engineer. You got your dad's math skills. And I now want to study astronomy. You should have been there honey. It was the most amazing thing Ari and I have ever seen. Wow, I suddenly have a space duo in the house. Anyway, we are going somewhere, bring some extra clothes and swim gear. We'll be back tomorrow night, she told Ari. I have a bag packed up for both of us, she said to Danny. After breakfast Julia and Danny were waiting in the TV room. Londi and Ari walked in. Where are we going this time, Mom? I hope not a stiff hotel with your staff. Londi got Julia's bag and Julia stood up. Danny, stand up beside me. Ari, stand by Londi. Londi, let's go. And with that they were transported to the Starship Enterprise. Welcome to the Enterprise, Madam Secretary. It was Captain Kirk Johnson who greeted the party. Both Ari and her dad were stunned. Londi ran off and Julia walked to greet the crew. This is Captain Mari Perez, my first officer, and General Simon Com Commander, and Colonel Beth Lind also Com. Johnson said. This is my husband Danny and my daughter Ari. Danny shook hands with Johnson and his officers. Ari set herself to look older and shook hands as her father did. Welcome to the Starship Enterprise, greeted Johnson. Colonel Beth Lind will show you two around if you want to tour the place. The group greeted them one by one. What just happened? Are we really on a starship? Her dad remains quiet. Come on, let me show you around. Let's walk over here, Beth explained away as they walked. They walked around in the same floor for a few minutes, got back to the bridge and they saw their mom talking to the crew. More than a dozen people wearing blue uniforms were just standing and some were manning consoles and talking. This is our bridge. In front of them looks like a large glass showing space with stars scattered around. This is my husband Danny and my daughter Ari. Now it's their turn to greet the crew. The father and daughter remained quiet but both nodded a hello and a handshake. Come on down this way, Beth said. They went inside an elevator and when the door opened they were at the far end of a hangar with several space fighters and some pilots and crew milling around. They can see space and stars at the far end of the hangar. These are our attack fighters, those are transport ships and the crew of course, come on let's move. And with that she closed the elevator door. When it opened they walked through a hall into the mess hall that looked like a large restaurant. At the far side is a floor-to-ceiling window into space. They can see the stars are moving to the right and they know they were moving. They noticed some of the crew are small like Asians. Would you like something to eat or drink? Both stayed quietly observing their surroundings. Beth concluded, maybe not this time. Come on then let's move on. They reached a room full of people wearing the same uniform as Johnson. This is our briefing room and down the hall is our medic hall. They peered in and the room is huge with various medical equipment and special beds. The engine room is not available at the moment so we better meet your mom at the bridge. Beth said. So how'd you like the tour? Julia greeted Beth's tour group. Are you kidding Mom, this ship made the exhibit we went to so prehistoric. I never thought we had a starship. It's one of 3. This ship is larger than 30 aircraft carriers. That's correct Madam Secretary. It was Captain Johnson. We can carry as much as 50,000 people. Have you met some alien beings? Ari asked. 70% of our crew are alien humans. Beth said. I did not see any alien. Danny said. You beamed in with one. Johnson said making Danny and Ari look at each other. Londi said they're ready. Beth said and Captain Johnson nodded and gestured to escort them to the main TP room. Where's Londi? Julia asked Beth. She went ahead with your bags. This trip is weird. But really cool. Cool and weird. Ari said. Julia looked at her and, you know what's really cool? Captain Johnson's first name is Kirk. It took Ari and Danny a while to get the joke. Beth and Captain Johnson laughed. Let's go, Julia signaled the TP crew. Welcome to Planet Los Angeles, it was Tim Rivers. They found themselves in the villa. Timmy, is that you? Elaine? Danny asked. They hugged each other as Elaine hugged Julia. This must be little Ari, Elaine says. She hugged her tight and kissed her cheeks. Mom, where are we? She saw the lake and ran towards the balcony. She saw the large group of people walking through the square below. You're in a planet called Los Angeles about 60 MLY from Earth and... Julia said but she stopped talking because her intended receiver is not listening. 60 MLY, wow. Ari said. Ari has the same ability of listening while not appearing to be listening very much like her mother. Come Danny, let me show you around. There's this drink. Timmy said as he put his arms around Danny's shoulders and pulled him towards him and they were beamed away. Where'd they go? Julia asked Elaine. Don't mind the boys. Come on Julie, Ari, let me show you around. They walked out of the building into a waiting electric buggy. Elaine took the wheel and started moving to the road. The road was full of small rocks and was roughly dusty. This is like driving through a rainforest in the dust. Ari and Julia gazed at the lush roadside surroundings and saw some weird animals. After a 10-minute drive they entered a clearing with what looked like a small university building structure on stilts. They saw people that looked like students and the little people with them. I run this university, Elaine said. University of Planet Los Angeles, Ari said as she read the sign on the side of the main stairs. You're the dean? Dean and administrator and anything else? Elaine answered. What do you teach here? Ari asked. We teach students starship leadership and technologies. After 6 years you graduate as starship officer with the rank of first lieutenant. The last year is done in the Enterprise or the other 2 starships. I want to study here. Elaine, Ari wanted to study aerospace engineering back home. What do you think? She can stay with us. Unless you and Danny get your own house here and move in. She toured them through the main hall of the main building. At the far end of the main building they realized there were 4 buildings surrounding a large square courtyard. Timmy's guys are working at the back of the building clearing trees and large rocks. It's a continuous work in progress. Are there real estate here for sale? Julia asks. Elaine just smiled. Let's join the boys and see what they're up to. Reinig, can you beam us up to Timmy please? She said. She was talking to herself or onto something Julia could not see. Earlier Timmy and Danny were beamed into an office that seemed to be floating on top of the lake overlooking the valley. The villa looked so distant. See those structures, that's Elaine's university. She's the dean and administrator. This is my office. And what you're seeing in front of you is begging for your development talents. You want me to work and develop this valley? Danny said. No, the government wants to give you the money to develop the planets. How many are we talking about? At least 20. But you can concentrate on 2 or 3. I'll be dead by the time I get to the second planet. Tim explained the needs of the planet and Danny listens intently. After a few minutes Elaine, Julia and Ari beamed in. Hey, look who dropped in. Welcome to my office Julia, Ari. We're like floating in the middle of the lake. But I did not see this structure when I saw the lake. Ari said. Excuse me. Elaine said as she left the room. Oh, the floating structure is really very large, almost as large as the Enterprise, and it's cloaked as it normally is, you know, invisible. Timmy explained. Wow, we're in an invisible space station. This is also the government command station. Danny, you can have your office above mine. I can give you and Julia a house, small but okay enough for you and Ari and Julia. There, near the waterfall on the left side. Do you see that small house? Accept the job and so we can work together. Like old times? If you accept this job I would have to come home here every day. But it will get you off the couch and you can build some muscles. Accept the job Daddy so I can go to the university and become a starship officer and explorer. Where's that drink you mentioned a minute ago? Timmy was quick, here's to your new job. He gave each of them a glass and filled their cup. Cheers. Ari, are you drinking already? No Daddy, it's my first. My first alien drink, Ari thought to herself. Just then Elaine and Londi walked into the room with another Mac. Hello Madam Secretary, I got some news from the office. Whenever we're not on Earth call me Julia. This just got in from the office. Julia looked at the message. I can prepare a press release if you want to say anything. We have a room just like your press room in Washington. Oh, and this is Rankil, my daughter, she'll be Ari's assigned mentor. The way we teach at the university is that a Mac is assigned to each student and teaches the student, guides them to their strengths and have them learn all they need to know and more until they graduate. Londi explained. But you look so young Londi, you have a teen daughter already? Thank you for the compliment. But I am hardly a teen. Here's your tablet Ari. You're my first student and I am excited to work with you. Rankil said. Ari looked at the dark glass tablet, how do you turn it on? Come, let me give you your first off-world lesson, Rankil said and led Ari out of the room. Lead me to the press room so I can deliver a message. Londi moves and Julia follows her. I'll go home and prepare lunch. Elaine said and leaves the room. Come Danny, let me show you your office. They started walking through a hall and up some stairs. I need to bring in some people with me. That's fine but they would have to be somehow vetted for security and they must sign non-disclosure forms. And they must bring their entire family here. FYI we already have a list of people for your approval. Even their extended families? He was thinking of his Asian associates. Some of them are not American citizens. Danny said. He was thinking of their alien relatives. The more the merrier. Take a look at all the Mac talents here. You'll find good use for them. They're all very smart and work very hard. Here, they'll be citizens of planet Los Angeles. And the whole planet is under the United States? At the moment. I don't see any large communities here. There are about 20 million Macs on the planet and this planet is 11% larger than Earth with about 60% land mass. A lot of rivers, lakes and has very deep oceans. Most structures like the factories are all cloaked, the housing complexes are all cloaked, the malls and the university are cloaked sometimes. Some structures are underwater, some are underground and some are floating like this one. You'd get used to this. They preserve the beauty of the place while we all live in the most advanced structures. They enter a nice office with some Macs standing by the door. This will be your office and this is Kendom, he'll be your Mac assistant. This is Rankit, your office manager. You can get all you need from them. The office is huge with views all around. It takes up one whole floor of the floating structure. Hello, Kendom, Rankit. Glad to meet you. Danny said as he shook their hands. Danny, your office would be right there. Rankit said while he pointed to a large enclosed area where the walls are thick glass. The whole office can handle more than 150 people. These 4 areas here are the designer's circle where all the designs and projects are visualized in a virtual way. Kendom said. Danny turned to Tim, let's look at that house you were pointing at. You know how Julia is with houses. They were beamed inside the main dining room of the house that opens to a view of the waterfall. This is lucky. Julia will like this very much. Danny said. Water is always lucky, and a waterfall is super lucky. This house is new and we build it for Albert but then the villa was also built so we use that more often now. We are building 4 more houses on either side of the waterfall. This house would be higher than the others. Where's that drink again? He opened some cupboards and felt the kitchen countertop. Welcome to the club partner.